What is actually happening in the tech space? Are these tech companies gasping for air? Why all the layoffs? My name is Dwayne Golden. I'm the VP of Sales at a $20 billion software company. But before I was a sales executive, I failed high school, dropped out of college, and lived with my parents for far too long until I was able to break into the tech space through sales. And on this channel, we talk all about how to make more money at every stage of your career. And today, we need to talk about the state of the tech industry. Like, what's actually happening right now? Are these guys all on their way down? Are the tech companies running out of money? Well, let's call a spade a spade. It's not looking good, bro. Where's the money? Well, I've done a little research, and here's what I found. Global venture capital in the year 2022 was $381 billion. That's how much went in these tech companies in 2022. Then you fast forward to 2023, only $221 were spent in global venture capital. That's a 42% decrease. Okay, I'm gonna just make this real for some of y'all today. What if they decreased your paycheck every 2 weeks by 42%? It would get real. You'd have to tighten up. You probably wouldn't spend as much at restaurants that particular month. You probably gonna start packing lunch, some of y'all, if they decrease your paycheck by 42%. Some of y'all would just get up and leave. Well, probably most of y'all. Let's keep it real. 42% decrease in global venture capital explains a lot. What effect has that had on the industry? Well, one thing is obvious. It's harder to raise money, and a lot of these companies are having to finally pay the piper. The second effect that it's had on the everyday person. So one is, what has this meant for employers? What has this meant for companies? It's harder to raise money. But what does that mean for the employees? Yeah, that's the tough part. Biggest chunk of just about every company's bottom line is the salaries, right? Human capital, having to, salaries, that stuff costs a ton of money, right? So if you need money and you're in a bind and you need to show profitability, that's gonna be one of the first areas people go, unfortunately. So it's been tighter. You've seen a lot of layoffs in the industry. You've also noticed it's harder to get hired. Because capital is harder to access, people have to be much more disciplined, financially speaking. And for so long, Silicon Valley and these tech bros were getting away with spending like there was some infinite money out there, right? And now what you've seen is companies didn't even care about being profitable for a very long time. They cared not about profitability. They would just spend money like there was no tomorrow, because for a long time, people were able to borrow money at near 0% interest. And yeah, that's not a thing anymore. So what's happening is it's more expensive to get money. It's harder to get money, so companies have to now be responsible. So they're not just hiring tons and scaling it at mass without paying attention to the bottom line. Now they have to look at profitability so they can stay afloat and become more attractive for venture capital, become more attractive for investors, because right now, if you're not profitable, if you're not running a tight ship, it's a lot tougher to get and raise money. So let's ask this question. Okay, why? So funding decreased by 42%. Why? Why did this happen? Why is it so much harder to access capital? Now look, I'll tell you, there's a bunch of different factors, but I'll tell you some of the ones that I've noticed after doing some of my research and my experience in the tech industry. Interest rates skyrocketed between the years of 2021 and 2024. Maybe you've noticed if you're a homeowner, maybe you've noticed if you've recently went out to buy a car, it costs a lot more money to borrow money. So now, for these VCs, global venture capital guys, what you recognize is it costs them a lot more money. So they're a lot more conservative when it comes to investing. They're a lot less likely to throw money at some risky company, right? If money was cheaper, maybe people are willing to take bigger risk. But right now, borrowing money is expensive. So people are only wanting to invest in money in sure shots. And let's call a spade a spade. There are a lot of risky companies out there. Companies that just made no sense. They didn't have any clear path to profitability in any sort of 3-5 year time horizon. So what's happening is a lot of those companies, in effort to even be able to raise money, they're having to cut their costs. So yeah, interest rates is a big reason for the reduction in global venture capital. Another reason is something else you may have noticed at a personal level. Inflation, right? Everything costs more. People talk about eggs costing more, right? You name it. Cars cost more than they've ever cost. Everything costs more. Hiring costs more. People and the economics of this whole thing, inflation has made a major impact here. So not only did borrowing money get expensive, but just doing business and everyday life became more expensive all at the same time. So people are being way more strict with their dollar. People are finally, or I say people, companies are finally choosing to be responsible with the money. And unfortunately, a lot of people had to pay that price. People like us. And unfortunately, it's hurt employees. So if you're out there looking in the job market, you've probably noticed in the tech space, it's so much tougher to find a job. I can tell you firsthand, people were beating down my door to hire me. And I'm a guy who doesn't have a college diploma leading a sales team of over 100 people. And even I was getting recruited, right? Like crazy. It was bananas. People were offering me double salary. I kid you not. One of the things you want to be careful of is making sure you're not leaving to go to another company just for a marginal increase in salary or what looks like to be a pay bump, because the risk is so high. If you're at a company that has been steadily growing over the past few years and you leave to go to a startup, man, you are taking a crazy risk. I can tell you a story right now, and maybe this person will be watching this video. I've had so many people, over 5, leave my organization to go work for a different company, only for them to come back, many times less than a year later, asking me if they can come back and work at my company again. And usually, depending on the circumstances, the answer is usually no, right? If you leave me because you think the grass is greener and you found out the hard way that it's not, and a lot of companies think this way, I'm probably not bringing you back, sorry. But the reality is, to protect yourself, man, just understand the job market is tough out there and the grass isn't always as green. If you leave your current job for a risky startup, understand there is some serious risks involved. Companies go under and job cuts are made. You've got to be careful as you make these decisions. Make sure you're not thinking about just about right now, but you're thinking long term. So if you've got a good job right now in tech, don't leave. Stay your behind right there. And this brings me to my next point. What tech companies are still thriving? They can't all be running out of money. I'm going to give you some signals for some companies that are actually operating very healthy and thriving in this economy. There's not a lot, but there still are some. Here are some signs you can look for. 1, recent M&A. If they've done any sort of merger and acquisitions, let's just focus on acquiring companies. If they've acquired other companies in the past couple years, that's a sign that they're growing and they've got money to go and buy other companies. That's a good sign of a healthy company. It's a great growth strategy. It's what a lot of companies are doing today. So I can speak from personal experience. The company that I work for right now, we use M&A regularly. We usually do 1 or 2 acquisitions a year. And it's part of our growth strategy. We may buy a startup that might be, doing X amount of dollars per month. Next thing you know, we acquire them, feed them to our sales engine, and we now turn that, $2 million company into a $50 million company very, very quickly, just by M&A. So if you see a company that has, look them up, Google them in the news, and they've done some recent acquisitions and things like that, that's a good sign that they're a healthy company and stable and growing and headed in the right direction. The other one's the obvious one. If they're hiring right now in this sort of period, great sign. Not everything though, but that is a good sign. Another thing that you should actively be looking for, steady growth over extended time frames. Like if you're working at a company that just took off within the past year, if you just are looking at a startup that just took off in the past year, they just blew up just very recently, understand, right, a lot of upside potentially if a company just grew really, really fast overnight in 1 year. Hey, potentially a really good spot to be in. Also, you can crash just as quickly as you rise, right? That happens in life, you've seen it. What is a safer bet and more strategic would be steady growth over a longer period of time. Like if a company's been growing steadily over the past 5, 7, 8 years, that is a great sign. But if you see like a blip on the radar, right, it just goes up really quick, it can come down just as fast. So look for steady growth, and you can do research. If you're in the job hunt, I would do crazy research, any recent M&A. Look at company growth year over year, and just look and analyze so you can be smart about the decisions you're making. If you're one of these people and you're looking to get a job and you want to break in tech, even in a very competitive job market, I recorded a video talk exactly about how you can get a job in tech even in a very competitive job market. I appreciate you watching. I'll catch you later. Bye.